Hey, if you like it, I love it.
Everybody say hey!
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out when I share new videos. We are back with part 2 of Yap and Wrap. I am going to be wrapping my Christmas gifts and answering pre-med frequently asked questions. I thought this was going to be done in one video, and then I realized I just yap too much. But I really want to make sure when I'm talking about these questions and like really explaining them for you guys. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The third question: do you have to be a straight A student to get into medical school? And while we chat about that question, we are going to wrap some more gifts. So I'm actually done wrapping all of the gifts that I purchased, but my sister came to town this weekend, brought me all her gifts. Apparently she doesn't wrap, so I'm wrapping them, and she's gonna hate me, but I'm wrapping our Christmas Eve PG. She got us these sets from Target. I'm absolutely obsessed with them. And just like the last video, every item that you see in this video, I'll have a link down below so you can go ahead and grab it if you need to do any last minute shopping for yourself or anyone in your life. So this is the wrapping paper that we're using for Christmas Eve gifts. Back to the question. I think the most important thing is to realize that numbers matter, but they're not the end of the world. I think that is a really important distinction to me. If you have like a 1.5 GPA, I'm not going to say no medical school is going to accept you, but that's going to significantly decrease your chances. Similarly, 500 MCAT, you should be able to get into medical school with that. 520 MCAT is going to open a lot more doors. And we talk about, like medical school is expensive. So, sometimes having those additional options for scholarships and different things like that. And as we talk about that, I do want to pull up some statistics. So you can find anything like the AMC website. So I just Googled AMC acceptance data. So then I'm able to find MCAT scores and GPAs for applicants and matriculants to U.S. medical schools 2019 through 2023-2024 cycle. Once I look at this, I'm able to see over the last 6 application cycle the average MCAT and GPA score for applicants and matriculants. So if I look at the total MCAT score for applicants, in between a 505 to 506. But for those accepted, it was about a 511. Similarly with GPA, the average for applicants was in between 3.5, 3.6, and then the average for those that were accepted was about 3.6, 3.7. So again, you can see that numbers are important, but they're not make it or break it. I think it's really important when you're thinking about like what schools you're going to apply to check the school's websites. MSTAR is a great place to start and really see like, do they have a minimum MCAT score? If also you want to look at like in-state bias, because like if you're in-state school, you probably have a better chance of maybe having a little bit more flexibility. With the South Carolina schools, like they have higher GPA and MCAT requirements for out-of-state students compared to in-state students. I talk about this every year though. Having a perfect, like you could literally have a perfect GPA and MCAT, a perfect 4.0, 528, and still not get accepted to medical school. And that is because numbers are not the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, we are going to be caring for patients. So having interpersonal skills, very important. Being able to work in a team, very important. Having passions outside of medicine to make sure that you don't get burnt out in medicine, again, very important. And so I do think that there is like, you just have to be able to find a balance there. You don't want to have a perfect academic scores and then not have a personality. So that's just not going to be what it gets you accepted to medical school. And I think you also want to be on the lookout. I think some schools throw this around more than others, so you really want to look at like who they're accepting, but this idea of holistic application review. So looking at you as a whole person and not just your numbers. And so, do you have research experience? What extracurriculars were you involved in? Did you have a 3.5, but you had to work to support your family while you were in undergrad versus someone that has a 3.7, but they didn't have to work at all. All they did was study, that kind of thing. So I think that, you know, when admissions committees are looking at your application, they're looking at it in the context of who you are as a person and not just looking at those numbers. So it's very complicated, and there's no algorithm or anything that you can like throw everything about yourself in and just know if you'll be accepted or not. There's definitely things you'd be like, okay, I have higher chances, lower chances, but that's why it's so important to make sure that you're applying to a variety of schools, that your school list is well balanced, and that's everything that I go over in my course from applicant to accepted, just chatting about like how to make a good school list, and that's really important to make sure that you're maximizing your chances at acceptance. To this down, one question answered. Gift number 2, these Skechers shoes that my dad bought for himself, and apparently he wants me to wrap for him. I mean, not horrible, but the thing is he don't always be matching his shoes, so I feel like he's gonna be wearing these green with any color, but hey, if you like it, I love it. So I'll wrap it for him. But before then, let's see. Question number 2. 4, 2 up today, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. How do you study for medical school exams? That is such a good question, and it depends. So let's chat again about like preclinical versus clinical years, because that changed, but also like the way that you study may change even throughout like one semester or 1 year of medical school, because so many different topics. Like you start with, I have a really great post on this, like breaking down what like a day in the life looks like, and what like preclinical, what the actual modules mean and what you're learning. So when you're in the basic science, like immunology, you might study differently than when you start getting into the organ systems like cardiology. So that is just something to think about. Let's go ahead and get this set. And I also have a lot more of in-depth videos on how I used Anki for my first year, how I used outside resources like Boards and Beyond and Sketchy. But really briefly, my school is mostly lecture-based, but it was non-mandatory lectures, and it was also in-house exams. But I did take step 1 after my first year of medical school. So with those caveats, at the beginning of the year, I was mostly just like watching videos on 2x speed, like the lectures. I didn't go to lecture because I just like the idea of like watching on my own time, being able to like pause and synthesize as needed. And then I also would supplement with osmosis because my school provided us with a free osmosis subscription. I did that for like maybe the first exam or 2, and then I just kind of decided I was going to be one of those outside resource girlies, so I became a big fan of Boards and Beyond. So whenever we would get the outline for our new units, I would look and see the Boards and Beyond videos that would align with the lectures that we were getting in-house. And I would watch those on 1 to 1.5x. They have associated PowerPoint slides, so I was annotating those. Then I would look at my school's lecture slides, and from that information, I would try to like make a study guide, and I'll put a picture of that there of what my study guide would look like. And then on like 2x or sometimes a little bit faster, I would watch my school's lectures just to fill in any blanks, because once again, we did have those in-house exams, and I do feel like because our curriculum was a bit accelerated, and maybe it's just the nature of my school, a lot of our lectures were clinical focused, so like clinical applications rather than strict like physiology, pathophysiology. So after I would do that for the day, I would usually do the Anki cards based on the Boards and Beyond videos. And that was pretty much it. I would just kind of like review that. I will say during my first year of medical school, I did not do as many practice exam questions as I should have. So I definitely would recommend trying to incorporate practice exam questions. Like my school gives us AMBOSS, so you could utilize that. But even like osmosis, at the end of every video, they have practice exam questions that you could do as well. Now, that is pretty much what I did throughout first year. Once I got into the clerkship year, it was a lot different. It's pretty much like we had didactics once a week on most of the clerkships where we would learn about different things, but studying for the shelf exams was essentially like UWorld and Anki. My camera died, so I had to charge it. My mom is obsessed with their aromatherapy body wash, so grabbed her a eucalyptus and spearmint one, and then the lavender and vanilla. I do love the lavender and vanilla smell, so I'm gonna wrap these for her. And then for my dad, he loves their body sprays, so we got him 2 new scents of the body sprays. And then just to save boxes, he wanted a like electronic lint remover, so I'm gonna throw that in the box with this stuff. As I wrap this up, let's get back to our question on, you know, like how did I study in medical school? So I was chatting about what it's like in the clinical year, and just kind of like most people just dive into UWorld and Anki. I did kind of find that that could be a little bit overwhelming, because for certain things like surgery, you're not really taught anything, well, at least at my school, you're not really taught anything about surgery in your preclinical year, so it's really like working without a foundation, which is incredibly stressful and overwhelming. So in that situation, I do recommend, or what I personally did was use an outside resource like Online MedEd. I thought their videos were really useful just as a starting point. I really did use them for neurology, because our didactics for surgery were like through the American Academy of Surgery and stuff like that, and so I thought those were useful. But for neurology, I was like, I don't remember anything from neurology. It was our last unit of preclinical. I just did not know what I was doing, and so I watched all the Online MedEd videos in addition to doing my UWorld and Anki, and I felt like that gave me a very solid foundation instead of just like throwing myself into the practice questions. So if you're feeling a little bit like, what's going on, I don't know how to navigate this, I would recommend starting with that instead of just like diving into questions. But essentially, that's kind of how it goes for clinical years. And then the preclinical, and I took step 2, and so that's kind of it for medical school in terms of exams. Now it's really just like surviving until I get to residency, and yeah, that's terrifying. This is great, like part 1, part 2. I don't think I'm gonna have anything else to wrap, so we can't do another yap and wrap, but like we can do a yap and walk around New York, or literally anything. So you guys just let me know what content you want to see, if you want to see more day in the lives once I get back into the clinicals, if you want to see more Q&As. I'm also in my like hobby journey, because I finally have time in my life to do things. Now that I'm not studying constantly, I'm just like going to clerkship and just enjoying learning, so that's been beautiful. So I have a little bit more time. So if you guys want to see more about my hobby journey, I'm getting into like cooking, baking, calligraphy, just let me know, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out when I share new videos.